dividing across by the absolute value of 7 gives us that. Well, what does that give us? That gives us that the absolute value of x minus 4 must be less than epsilon over 7. So what we've just done is this, is that we've reduced our conclusion. Okay, we've worked backwards, yeah? We've reduced our conclusion down into something that looks like our premise. We have our x minus a is less than some value here, okay? So we know that if x minus a, if x minus 4 is less than this particular value, yeah, that what we'll have is we'll always have that f of x minus l is less than the epsilon that was given, okay? So this is important for us because this is the value that we're going to choose delta to be, okay? So let's do that. So let's choose delta. So let's choose delta to be equal to epsilon over 7. So we've just found it. That's what we've just done here. Is this particular journey here was just to find an appropriate delta. So let's just say that we choose delta to be equal to epsilon over 7. So now what we need to show is this, is we need to show now that for each and every x, okay, satisfying this condition, 0 is less than x minus 4 is less than delta, okay, well, delta is now epsilon over 7, that this thing here implies this thing here, okay? That this particular premise implies this particular conclusion. Well, what does this tell us? Okay? Well, this is the same as just saying that the absolute value of x minus 4 is less than epsilon over 7. Okay, which means that minus epsilon over 7, let's just expand this out, must be less than x minus 4 is less than epsilon over 7. Multiplying across by a positive 7, okay, that gives us minus epsilon must be less than 7 times x minus 4, which must be less than epsilon. Okay. Now let's just work this out here. See, we've bounded now this. Okay, this is basically is that the absolute value of 7 times x minus 4 is less than epsilon. So let's now just work this backwards to get what we started with. Let's see, can we get f of x minus l? Let's see, can we get this? Okay. Well, what does this give us? This gives us that minus epsilon is less than 7x minus 28, which is less than epsilon. But hang on, minus 28 is the same as minus 2 minus 26. So now we have that minus epsilon is less than 7x minus 2 minus 26, which is less than epsilon. Voila, there's our function and there's our limit. Okay? So now what we have is this, is that the absolute value of 7x minus 2, let's just associate them together, minus 26 is less than epsilon, because that's what this particular inequality says, is that if this particular term here is less than the positive epsilon, and if it's bigger than the negative epsilon, well, then its absolute value must be less than the positive epsilon. And look, what we now have is that this, we've just actually reduced this down into the form, there's the function f of x minus L is less than some epsilon. And how did we get there? Well, we got there by starting here. Okay, this thing here is effectively x minus a is less than delta, where we chose delta to be epsilon over 7. Okay? So the appropriate delta to use, we did find an appropriate delta. We found epsilon over 7. Okay, by looking at the conclusion and working the conclusion through to see could we find this particular premise in there. Okay, so once we did that, we found an appropriate delta. Delta should be epsilon over 7. So with delta equal to epsilon over 7, what we did was we worked the premise through to see could we get the conclusion. And working the premise through, we can see that what we end up with is the conclusion. So what we now have is this, is that we've just shown by definition that the limit of 7x minus 2 as x tends to 4 is in fact equal to 26. Why? Because if anybody gives us any epsilon greater than 0, we can find a delta greater than 0, which we've just done, such that for all of the x within this particular region, that implies that the function minus the limit is less than the epsilon that was given at the start. Okay. So once again, guys, this is Jonathan Lambert with Maths and Stats, and I hope this video was in some way intuitive, and more importantly, I hope that was helpful for you. And thanks for watching. Okay, bye-bye.